Last time on Nightbane. In the past, Isla was in the night market that was actually a day market, trying to find those damn human skin gloves. She sucked at stealth and was caught and put in a cell because reasons. Grimm decided to enlist Isla's help looking for a MacGuffin sword. Oro turned out to know about special ore that they can forge into Drek-defeating weapons. And he also had more friends that were there the whole time and who happened to be really good at ore finding. What are the odds? Everyone stood around a table and made quote-unquote plans for the upcoming war. And Isla trained with a bugman and mastered her powers over life and death. In the past again, Isla and Grimm climbed a super deadly cliff and talked to a super deadly blacksmith about the sword that Grimm wants. He didn't have it. Back in the present, we found a kid named Cinder who is the strongest starling for some reason, and then in the past again, Grimm and Isla investigated some thieves. The thieves didn't have the sword, so Grimm and Isla killed all of them.
Alright, hello. I have a little bit of time before I have to go to work, so we are going to crack out a chapter, maybe two if they're short enough. But we have this chapter called I Do Not Die Today, so let's go. By the way, if you hear noises upstairs, it's Adam. He's in his office directly above me, doing who knows what. So I guess Isla is just ignoring the fact that the Oracle was like, hey, I have something I want to tell just you. Or maybe I completely misunderstood that scene. Maybe the Oracle, pulled Isla aside and told her something then. It didn't seem like it. But maybe I just misunderstood. Because Isla has no interest in going back to see the Oracle again. But she is talking about the Oracle's prophecy and how she has to get that door open. So both of them are, worried that she's gonna die. And of course Oro is doing that whole masculine protective thing, if you die, my whole world falls apart. I can't even think of you dying. And she's like, because we have the love bond, if I die, do you get my powers? And he's like, yes. And I don't remember why the heck that is. I don't really remember that being a thing. But I guess it's a thing. Because Oro doesn't want her to die, she wonders, is it possible to love someone too hard? Was it possible to turn love into a prison? We are really still trying to, consider love as, a theme in this book, when the author can't even really, at this point, handle a plot. So I don't think we're ready for themes. But Oro is like, hey, before you go see the cannibal people, I'm gonna just put a fucking shield over you. And he uses the Starling's ability to create, energy shields. And he's like, here you go, now you take over the shield, and she does. So now she's just got, a literal character shield.
She gets a literal character shield that the author immediately forgets about and never uses again, even in times when it would be super useful to have a shield.
Is it supposed to be stupid?
It's not stupid. It's advanced.
So they teleport to a snowy place. I think I remember that the people were living on Cleo's island, but Cleo left and we were told that her snow is melting, so why is it so snowy here? I don't know. But the air was white, coated in a thick layer of snow. The air was coated in a thick layer of snow. The air? And if the air being coated in snow wasn't enough, we also have the character of Enya, who's along for the ride, and her body was coated in reddish gold. She's also using a shield, but this is a fire shield, for warmth probably. This is a really weird conversation. Enya decides that while they're walking through the snow looking for cannibals is the perfect time to confess to Isla that Enya knows when she is going to die, because when she was born, the Oracle sent for her mother and told her mother when Enya was going to die. And I'm like, where did this conversation come from? Nobody ever brings up anything naturally in this book. Again, I think it's just lack of skill on the author's part. She doesn't know how to have characters bring up things naturally. Enya shrugged a shoulder. Nobody shrugs with both shoulders in this universe. Only one. I don't know which one. Which is the shoulder that you shrug with? Okay, she just shrugged her shoulder, one shoulder, in the previous paragraph, and she does it again in the next paragraph. This might qualify as what I would call maybe a crutch gesture in this instance. Watch out for characters making the same gestures over and over again. When you try to break up dialogue, body movements or whatever, small moments of movement, which is a good idea to break up dialogue that way, watch out for using the same thing over and over again. This author is obsessed with legions. Nobody comes in armies or scouting parties or units. It's always legions. And suddenly a legion of Vinderland appeared on the horizon, and they're wearing metal helmets. So they have metal armor, which is weird because I thought they were more like barbarian coated, so like leather armor and stuff, but they're holding swords and axes and they're just looking real scary. So I think, oh, okay. That entire super fucking awkward conversation was just so that we can drop the title of this chapter. When they see all of those enemies, Enya leans over to Isla and goes, "I do not die today." And that's the name of the chapter. And then we just cut to, we time jump to the fight. It's like, oh, that was painful. I'm curious why Isla, who everyone agrees is the most special princess, was sent out here with one other person to go speak to these dangerous warrior cannibals. But fortunately, Enya is a very powerful firebender, so she just sets up a wall of fire and burns all the arrows that are coming at her. Immediately we get to fighting though, because these people are not like talkers really, and Isla doesn't try, so they just launch right into the fight of her and Enya kicking ass against this quote-unquote legion. I have no idea how many people this author thinks are in a legion, but it's a legion of enemies that are, again, quoting the book here, heavily armored.
Once again, we're here looking at our definition of legion from Merriam-Webster, and the first entry is principal unit in a Roman army comprised of 3,000 to 6,000 foot soldiers with cavalry. Now, second, it can mean a large military force, like the French Foreign Legion. So I believe that is the version that she is going for, but every time I hear legion, I think of Roman army. And, like, there are definitely not 3,000 to 6,000 foot soldiers with cavalry here. Absolutely not. I don't know where they would put all of those people. There's not enough space on any of the islands for that many. But it does bring up something that I often struggle with in my own writing, especially when I'm drafting. I just let myself do this when I'm drafting. When I'm drafting, I don't write down like the numbers of things. Like how many guards are there? I don't know. How many people are in that army? I don't know. And then afterward, my alpha reader, my husband, who notices that kind of thing, comes back and he's like, now I need those numbers. Now I need you to tell me how many there are of something. And that, again, shows how important it is to have people look at your work and editors look at your work, because, like, we have no idea how many Vinderlanders Isla is fighting. And that's the sort of thing that we really kind of need to know if we're going to be really brought into the scene and feel like she's in any kind of danger, or whether we feel very confident that she will win. We have no idea, because all we have is a legion.
Isla hits a man on the temple to knock him out, but we were told they were wearing helmets, so how's that working? Enya and Isla fight for a while, and then Isla just decides, okay, I guess I've had enough fighting, and uses trees to, like, stop everybody. So once she calls up several trees, all of a sudden everybody just stops fighting, and their big, giant, scary leader comes out to, like, talk to her. Because that's how diplomacy works. You fight for a little while, and then you magic up some trees, and then we sit around and talk. Obviously, because this book is really very poor at getting across emotions, sometimes the characters just have to say or think things like, I hate you. For example, Isla, master of diplomacy, says to this man's face, I hate you. I feel like as queen of two nations, that you probably just should not say that to someone whose army you want on your side. Also, these people have also heard of the Oracle. Like, everyone has heard of the Oracle. Everyone believes the Oracle. The Oracle was like such an afterthought in the first book, and now it's like the words of the Oracle are like everybody's like Bible. They're like, oh, if the Oracle said so. Weirdly enough, telling someone you hate them is not a good way to get them on your side, and so this guy doesn't want to be her friend, and he swings his axe at her head, but she uses her death disintegration powers to just poof, turn his axe into ash. And I suspect that that's probably how she's going to get them on her side, is just by terrifying all of them with her death powers until they agree to be allies. Diplomacy!
You magnificent bastard, I read your book!
And the next chapter, we're back with the Grimm storyline, which I feel like is the one that the author actually cares about, but that might just be because it's a lot easier to tell a story that has like just one goal in it. She and Grimm are looking for a sword, versus the rest of this book is just a mess of just things and elements all over the place that the author cannot keep track of and has no idea how to balance in the plot. So yes, now the Grimm stuff isn't written well, but at least it's more focused. Anyway, that chapter's a little bit longer, so I'm probably not going to get to it today because I gotta go to work, but I will catch you all when I do get to it, whenever that is. Hello and welcome back for another chapter of Nightbane. So you'll never guess what's happened. I caught COVID again. It's been over a year. Same as before, just cold symptoms. I need to know, I'm too lazy to go check. But the last time I had COVID, was it while I was reading Lightlark? Because if so, I'm beginning to think that Alex Astor has magic powers and she's cursing me. Don't go after reviewers and definitely don't put curses on them. Rude. Alright, let's get back to Grim Daddy. For some reason, I've decided as I read this that I'm not looking at spoilers again, even though I was gonna not care about this book, but every time I see like someone else has published a video about this, I'm like, I don't want to look. Because I want to see the disaster unfold before my own eyeballs. I want to give my most authentic reactions to this nonsense. Also, my left ear has suddenly decided to become stuffed up, like just as I sat down here, so if I'm talking louder, it's because I can't hear myself. Let's go. The moment I sat down, the dog was like, actually, I have to pee, so that's why my glasses are dark now. So Isla gets bored of waiting for Grim Daddy because he arbitrarily decided that he would come back in however long. So nights go by and she's like, I'm bored. So she goes to one of her people's villages to just like spy on them, I guess. And of course, somebody clonks her over the head and takes her prisoner because this girl can't go anywhere without getting taken prisoner. Isla is just, her intelligence levels are off the charts. So the people who have captured her are talking about eating her heart, and they are like hesitating because she's a wildling, which does imply that my theory is correct, that wildlings are eating someone else's hearts, not their own. But the person is like, we don't have a choice, we're starving, and Isla's like, my people are starving. Why, Poppy and Tara never mentioned that we didn't have enough hearts. If you think about it for like less than 5 minutes, I think you could come to that conclusion on your own that there probably aren't enough hearts to feed your people. Like, that's a whole human that's going to waste except for the heart. That's like a lot of meat, and you gotta find those humans. And yeah, no, just think for a few minutes. Man, I hope my voice doesn't come off as congested to the camera as it sounds to me. I'm sorry if I sound really measly and annoying, but I might as well use my time off of work to record this book, so. Fortunately, Isla always keeps her star stick in the back of her outfit, like Wonder Woman's sword in the first Wonder Woman movie, and these people haven't realized that she has it. Man, wouldn't it suck? It would just suck to be the person that accidentally ate the heart of your, like, leader and killed all of your people. That'd be a real bummer. And they never know what happened. Like, what happened to the leader? She's just gone. She's just dead. And then I don't know what they do with the rest of the corpses, but maybe they find her in a corpse pile somewhere with a hole in her chest, and everyone's like, okay, who ate the leader? Frank, was it you? Isla gets knocked out a lot. I betcha she has some brain damage going on as well. So Isla says the dumb thing and then realizes it's dumb. Fortunately, at least she realizes it. But instead of saying, I'm your ruler, she says, I'm a wildling, which we had previously established by the conversation of these two people that they don't really care about. They're hungry enough to eat her anyway. And then they gag her. So they just start to cut open her chest with her awake and like sitting upright, which, I don't know, there's gotta be a better way to do this, but I guess if the heart has to be like still beating, like why not just kill her real quick and then do the surgery? Because what if you damage the heart? Is it still good if she like squirms at the wrong time and you like mangle it? Can you eat a mangled heart? I don't know what the rules are, but this just seems like the worst possible way to do it. Because Isla is wiggling around so much, she is able to grab the star stick and use it to portal out of there. Fortunately, for whatever reason, it doesn't need to recharge at this point. Wouldn't that suck? And she has gotten away. We have never, by the way, when she talks about like her previous injuries up until this exact moment, she has never mentioned that at one point she almost got her heart carved out of her chest. She's real sour about having been shot in the heart with an arrow, but she doesn't go, and also there was that one time that my heart almost got like carved out of my chest while I was still conscious. Oh, I see what's going on. She needs to be grievously injured, but she doesn't want to go home because then Poppy and Tara will know that she's been going away, so she has to go to Grimm. Not gonna go to your best friend? You know? Your bestie? No? Not gonna do that? Alright. Again, because this author writes for tropes, she doesn't write because it would make a good story. She writes because she only knows how to do tropes. And this is the exact I didn't have anywhere else to go trope. You know, the one that everybody fawns over, and even I have a fondness for when it's done well, but this just felt super, super contrived. Let's have her go get stabbed in the chest, something which was never brought up until this moment, doing a thing that she has, like, specifically said she doesn't do, which is go check out the villages. Just so she can go to Grim Daddy and be like, I didn't know where else to go, even though she has a best friend that she could totally go to. She goes to Grim Daddy, and he's all growly and upset because who hurt you? Blah, 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 tropes, tropes, tropes. And she's like, hey, just teleport back to my place and get this potion. I'll describe it to you. He does. He comes back so she can be healed up, like, immediately, because injuries don't matter. Do we already have that marked off? Because if not, we should. I might have taken it off, but it should be, because injuries don't matter in this book at all. It's just so that she can teleport to him and say the lines, you know, I didn't know where else to go, and he could be like, who hurt you? And again, why couldn't your bestie do this? Why couldn't you go to her and be like, hey, here's my star stick, portal back to my room and grab a potion and come back? But no, can't do that. It had to be Grim. Couldn't be anyone else. He pours the elixir on her and it heals the injury, and then he gives her some bandages, and she like bandages herself. Her chest was carved open, but she's bandaging herself. Because she's a strong, independent woman. She don't need no man. Oh my god. So he goes away and he comes back with a hot chocolate, and he basically says Lupin's line from Harry Potter, the chocolate helps, and she drinks it and she's just like, oh my gosh, I love chocolate. Like, remember how they bonded over chocolate in book 1? It's like, okay, it's so cheesy and corny.
Chocolate is a serious thing.
So she's like, the chocolate is great, but I need something more to take the edge off, because the wildling elixir famously heals the injury but doesn't solve pain issues. So she's like, what about that weird drug that was mentioned one time and I totally remember for some reason? Nightbane, you know, title of the book. And Grim is like, you'll never have it. It's the worst drug. It makes you feel super happy, but then you forget about everything else. Grim shrugged a shoulder. Take a drink. So she's like, fine, if you won't give me heroin, can I have some booze? And he's like, yes, alcohol is fine. So he's like, yeah, Nightbane will kill you slowly, but alcohol, that only sometimes kills you slowly. Grim is like such an edgelord. She's like, don't you have anything but alcohol in your room? And he's like, pain is useful. Okay, all right. So Isla and Violet are having a special girl off. But then who wins the broody emo boy? Like, which of them is the broodiest and the saddest and the gruffest? Which of them listens to the most Linkin Park? Who has the deepest soul pain? Grim wins flat out for powers, because yes, they both have shadow powers, but Grim can also turn invisible, turn intangible, teleport, curse people, read minds and erase memories. You know, he can do everything. So he's got the powers, but like, what about the sad boy? What about the edgelord? So Grim, because he has to be the edgiest person in the room. He's like, I had really tough training as a child, even though yes, so did Isla. And he's like, part of my training consisted of being cut and skinned until there was any flesh left on my back. Isla is like, that's barbaric. Isla, your teachers hung you from a tree until your arms popped out of their sockets.
So, like, you'd think that she would be like, oh yeah, that's how training goes. Yeah, flaying you alive sounds like a Tuesday. He shrugged another shoulder. Take another drink. We're going to be unconscious by the end of this chapter if he keeps shrugging. Also, we cannot have a tortured sad boy unless he has scars on his back for some reason. That's also the rules. I don't know what happens if you write a tortured sad boy who doesn't have scars on his back. I think, again, your agent, like, kicks you out. Which, oh my god, I just realized. So in Adventurer Mage, we already established that Valentine is a special girl because he has electricity magic. And Maeve has scars on her back from being punished as an indentured servant, so she's the broody sad boy. Oh my god, it comes full circle. Nigel, I've actually written the tropes by accident and in reverse. And of course, Grimm has daddy issues because his father would come watch him be tortured. And Isla keeps being like, oh my god, that's so barbaric. How could any culture do that? And it's like, Miss Ma'am, your teachers torture you regularly. You remember all of those things from the first book that you, like, they did this exact same thing to you. You mentioned when you were sticking your hand in the fire that they trained you never to show pain on your face by burning you or cutting you or whatever. Why are you shocked by this? If I was Isla, I would be like, well, I assume that's what all rulers go through. I'm going through it, he's going through it. That's just how rulers are trained. So he decides that she has asked too many questions and he's just too sad. So she needs to leave and she goes home and she goes to sleep, but then she wakes up in the middle of the night and Grimm is fucking sitting in her room watching her like fucking Edward Cullen. I'm just making sure you don't bleed to death while you sleep. And I'm like, you are creeping. You are a creeping creeper. He creeped in the first book. He's creeping in this book.
Do the creep and do the creep.
She's like, leave, and he's like, nah, your death would be inconvenient for me because everything in this book is a cliche. And of course, he's certainly fallen for her for reasons I cannot fathom. So they conversate for a while, just the usual, fluff that you expect from this scene. However you think that this scene plays out, you are almost certainly right. Just think of the most cliche conversation that they could have. But eventually, it comes around to her star stick, and she's like, wait, this is a nightshade device. How do I have it? Like, did you know my mother? And he's like, no, I haven't met any wildlings since before the curses, which she just believes him. So they're just like, how did this nightshade device get into your room? I mean, I'm pretty sure Celeste put it there. I thought that was the reason. Maybe I'm wrong. She starts playing with her hair, and he's like, do you always play with your hair when you're uncomfortable? And she says, no, and he says, yes, you do. I've seen you do it. But this is the first time we've seen her do it. Actually, she's telling the truth as far as we're concerned. She doesn't play with her hair when she's uncomfortable. Whoa! Grimm crossed his arms without and across his chest? I am shocked. I didn't know these authors knew that you could do that. And you know what? When I read Grimm crossed his arms, I completely understood what that meant. I didn't need the across his chest. By the way, Nigel is vibing out right here on the arm of my chair. It's hard to see, but he's doing that panther thing where he's got one, arm on either side of the chair. Okay, Grimm stood from the chair until he was right in front of her. He stood from the chair until he was right in front of her, which makes me think that, he stood from the chair and scooched it at the same time, and then sat back down, and then stood and scooched, stood and scooched, stood and scooched. That's the mental image I have of him standing from the chair until he is right in front of her. Eventually they get to talking about the line of girls that she came to for Grimm to sleep with, and of course they're going back and forth, he's like, you were into it, and she's like, no, I wasn't, and he's like, I can actually feel emotions, that's one of my powers, and she's like, god damn it, and he's like, yeah, I knew you were horny for me. And then they end that flirt argument like we've seen a million billion times, and that's the end of the chapter. And now I have to go feed a horse, but it'll probably come back. Me and my nasally voice are gonna come back because I can film a few more of these today. Why not? I'll see you then.
Hello, it's me, your friendly neighborhood voiceover Julian. Are you an author? Have you written a book and you're juggling a lot of elements in the story? Probably you're worried that maybe some of those elements aren't coming across correctly. Sure, it seems like it to you, but you're the author. You know this book inside and out. How is it going to come across to a reader? Are they going to be able to understand it? Have you put enough of this, that, or the other thing in it? Well, there's a great way to find out, and that is to hire a developmental editor. And hey, look at that! I happen to be one of those. So if you want to make sure that you're not dropping plot threads left, right, and center like Alex Astor is in her book, hire a developmental editor. And hey, maybe you want to hire me. You can check me out on Fiverr. Let's talk.
And we're back. The horse is now eating, and I have hot chocolate in an old cup with a straw. This is where we're at this evening. All right. Let's go. More Nightbane. Oh, how many cliches can we fit into this book? Oh, you know what? I'm gonna give it the horny slot because he was like, you were hot for me that one time when you stabbed me, and she was like, shit, yes, I was. And I think that being horny during very inappropriate times to be horny definitely gets the slot. Which means that we do have, oh no, we don't have another bingo, because when you do, you think your reader is dumb, which honestly, I don't know, like the writing in this is so bad that I don't even know if I could give it that square, because like, do you think your reader is dumb almost implies that the author has put any thought into their writing, look, it's gonna sound really mean, but it just doesn't feel like Alex Astor cares all that much about this book. I hope it made her some money, and it made her some money from me, because I bought this like right when it came out, but yeah. All right, let's go. We have, this chapter is now called The Line Between Life and Death. We're just getting very extravagant with our chapter titles. Earlier, they were just one-word chapter titles. Choices, Insignia, Unleashed. She's transitioned us over from like the one-word chapter titles of the first book. She didn't want to like shock our systems too much by just doing it immediately. Oh yeah, Isla went into that specific memory, in the middle of a pitched battle. But she has come back now to herself. Like that memory happened in less than a second. And the Vinderland warrior is about to lower his axe. Or she disintegrated his axe. He asks what she is she a wildling? And she says, I'm more than that. She said, stepping forward. Suddenly she had Enya's confidence. She had seen her own death too. She would not die today. Like, what? But you didn't. You saw a time when you got stabbed in the chest very much, which you haven't remembered until this exact moment, but you didn't see your own death. So of course, the Vinderland people are immediately impressed by the fact that she is both a wildling and a nightshade. And they're like, cool, you have disintegration powers, we will now follow you to the ends of the earth. And they clank swords with her, and he calls her Singrid, or he says the word Singrid, she doesn't know why. That sounds Norse to me. Future me will look it up and put it on the screen what that word means. But are we implying that these cannibalistic weirdos are Norse themed?
Hello, it is I, Julian from the future. So there doesn't seem to be anything for Singrid, which is how she spells it, with an N. But Sigrid, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Sigrid is from Old Norse and Swedish, a Scandinavian queen appearing in Norse sagas, according to Wikipedia. She was haughty, apparently, and knew her own mind, so maybe that's what we're referring to. It is entirely possible that Alex Astor meant Sigrid, and nobody, corrected it, and she couldn't remember the name, so she wrote Singrid instead. It's entirely possible that she means something else, but I have no idea what. I even went back into Nightbane and reread that section, and he just says Singrid. It's not even clear that he's referring to her, or whether that is their word for everything's fine, or what. Yeah, this is the best I can come up with.
Now he's totally down. Before he was like, didn't we shoot you? And she was like, I got better. And he's like, well, we'll soon solve that. But now he's like, oh yeah, we have all these legends about people who walk the line between life and death. And that must be you because we shot you and you survived. So the switch has immediately flipped. They just had to see her disintegrate one axe. That was all it took. I don't know why these people escaped the curse. Because she asked them how many people they have, and he's like, oh, a fucking lot. We have a huge population. But they have been afflicted with a sickness, but were they not required to eat hearts because they had I don't know, morphed into something else? But Isla's like, hey, if we can cure your people, will they fight too? And he's like, absolutely. These people are giving me, I believe they're called the Avar from Dragon Age. They're giving me those feels. Then she does an Aragorn and clatters swords with a whole bunch of them, and they're just like, oh my god, she's the best. She's our new leader now.
If you're wondering if Isla ever addresses the fact that these people are actual cannibals, no. No, that never comes up. Presumably they continue being cannibals, and she just doesn't care because they're on her side now. They probably eat some of her people, but she wouldn't know, and she doesn't care.
For some reason, she's like, rather than going to the wildlings for a cure to this, I'm gonna go to the only moonling we have left, whose name is Calder, and he's like, I am actually a really terrible healer. Isla does finally go, wait a minute, the wildlings are also pretty famously good at healing. Maybe we should also go ask them. But of course, the wildlings have never thought of making an elixir for sickness, only for injury. They're like, we've never tried this for sickness before. Like, I guess maybe the wildlings just don't get sick? Isla is like, oh, the tough choices of being a ruler. This does not count towards Isla being a ruler, though, on the bingo card. This does not count. She's like, do I save the healing elixir now? Or do I give it to these warriors so I have a bigger army? The dilemmas of leadership. Her giant cat shows back up for a minute and everybody's all impressed and they're like, are there more of those giant cats? And Isla gets the impression that no, there's not. And she thinks about riding giant cat into battle, which I'm sure she will do later. I'm sure the only reason that this cat exists is because the author thought it would look badass if she rode a giant cat into battle. And that's the end of that chapter, and then we get another memory chapter. I think we're just going back and forth now. Yeah, we're just going back and forth with Grimm and the memories. How exciting! I'm probably going to read at least one more chapter before I take a little break. I'm sure I'll be filming more while I have COVID, so look forward to more of this voice. Thrilled for you that this is what you get to have. I'll see you for the next chapter. And we're back. Here we go. Man, if only her tutors had known that she was frequently having this dude come into her room, and how often she was buggering off and getting herself injured. All these extracurricular activities that she's got going on make her teachers look really stupid. Grimm shows up and takes her to a training room in his castle where he's going to teach her how to get better at portaling, and he's just like popping around everywhere. She planted her feet firmly against the ground. She planted her feet. She planted her feet firmly. Unless you're going to have her specifically planting them against something else, the ground is pretty well implied. You could save yourself some words there. See, here's what I don't understand. So he's like, I want you to portal across the room because she sucks at going short distances. So she portals herself to a beach and the quote-unquote night market, which is actually a day market. And it's like, yeah, except for, like, she doesn't portal the minute she uses the stick. She just draws the portal. So she can just look through and be like, that's not where I belong. But instead it makes it sound like she just, like, dumps herself off on these places and Grimm has to keep bringing her back. But why? Since we already know that she can look before she leaps. But of course now, because this thing is made up out of only tropes, Grimm is like, let me like stand right behind you and like guide you, like I'm teaching you how to play the guitar or pool or any number of things that guys feel like the need to hunch over the woman to do. Romantically hunch.
I hunch.
Don't.
And of course that time she manages to portal back into the training room. Now Grimm is going to teach her how to sword fight. Great, love that. Now she will have fought 2 people before she has to go up against Oro. And in their training, he's just beating her over and over and over again. You cannot have a fighting scene without it being a flirt fighting scene. So, of course they're flirting. And he's getting like too close and she's hearing his growly breath and blah blah blah. It's just more Violet Zayden bullshit, but with swords. At least Isla gets to use a whole sword and we're not pretending that all she can use is daggers. So 1 point for that book. 1 point. You now have 1 point. But we also rush even this. Even the flirt fighting sequence is rushed. So we get just a little bit of it and then she like glosses over it all. It's not even a montage, really. It's clear that the author just gets fucking bored of every scene that she writes. And she's like, and then they kept training and she got really good. Next. And that's the end of the chapter. Yeah. And it's like 3 pages long. If this was written by Rebecca Yarros, it would have been like 20 pages of flirt fighting. Like, we need to find something in between that if you're going to have a flirt fighting scene. Something between
3 pages and 20 probably is the correct amount of flirt fighting.
Also, just thinking about this whole chapter and the way that it affects or doesn't affect the future Isla. Because, okay, in this chapter she learns to use her star stick better. And after this, it doesn't seem like her star stick needs to recharge. Or at least not nearly as often. And it never needs to recharge in the first book, so you might be like, well, Grimm taught her here how to use her star stick, so it no longer needs to recharge, even in the first book. Except for, we all know that Grimm wipes her memory, and so she loses the ability to go from point to point because she's no longer able to do that in the first book. But then why doesn't her star stick go back to needing to recharge? And also, we might be like, Grimm taught her to fight, that's why she was so good. Except she would have lost, once again, all of the memories of this fight. Now, maybe muscle memory kind of saved her, but it also helps to actually remember. So, all in all, this entire sequence was pretty pointless.
Anyway, I think I'm gonna go do something else because my brain's already mush, and then trying to read this book for any extended period of time, fucking painful. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you with the next chapter when I will sound exactly like this still. Bye. Hello and welcome back to Julian Has COVID and Tries to Understand This Terrible Book. Luckily, the brain fog that I was having earlier today has mostly dissipated, but honestly, I don't feel like I needed a lot of brain power for this book, so we're just gonna go ahead with this chapter. Again, chapters don't have numbers. This one is called Creatures in the Woods. So there's probably gonna be some creatures in the woods, I betcha. So she's going to Star Isle. I can't remember why, but something has happened here, and you recall that the Starlings do not have enough problems. They also have like monsters that live on part of their island, and apparently the creatures in the woods, yes, we already have the title drop about 4 or 5 paragraphs in, have attacked. Just a reminder that the Starlings do live to be 25, which is older than Isla, but she's still surrounded by them, and they're like all kids, and it's like, why? There would still be like at least 24-year-olds hanging around, but they're like, oh, Isla, you are the oldest of us. She, of course, takes this time to remember how they view her as a deity. Apparently, the creatures in the woods have stolen a little girl, and we just cut to now Isla is hunting the creatures. She does have her 2 bodyguards with her. This time, like, they're with her or not with her, whatever the book decides. Like, they're terrible bodyguards. They're around sometimes and not most of the time. Oro's around all the time, except for now we have come back to, like, memories of Grimm, which means that this author still cannot handle Isla having, like, 2... like romantic interests at the same time, so she has to have a chunk of the book be like Oro based and a chunk of the book be Grimm based. She cannot handle them both, which led to my theory in book 1 that they were the same person, and honestly they still could be. We get a bird suddenly and randomly that she remembers is called a heartfinch because they like usually travel in couple pairs. Like, okay, random. So it starts to rain, because of course it does, and Isla wishes that she had moonling powers so that she could, like, not get rained on. But doesn't Oro technically have moonling powers? Yeah, he does, because he can do a little bit of healing. And she has all of Oro's powers, right? Because they love each other? So she should be able to redirect the rain.
What are the rules? Here we go with this. What are the rules?
Also, she finds a puddle of blood. It's never called anything else, just a puddle, because this author loves the word puddle. I mean, it is a cute word, but you don't need to use it every time. So now it's getting real stormy, and there's lightning, and she has, supposedly her 2 bodyguards are still, like, flying with her, unless they left and I just didn't notice. But, like, they should probably not be up there when it's doing this. Again, we have shined versus shown. Like, maybe this is just changing. Maybe I am part of the old guard and I need to get with the times. But she finds a snake and it says, the metallic scales shined brightly. It can be shined. I know the language is changing, but it's shown is more correct here. Like, I don't know. Am I the only person who uses shown instead of shined anymore in these instances? So it turns out that at least one of the creatures is a gigantic snake. These bodyguards suck. She's like, the snake is attacking her, and she's like rolling and dodging and all that stuff, and she's like, Avel and Seal weren't far behind, but it would take them time to get to her. It would be too late. If they're your bodyguards, they should be like right on top of you. It should not take your bodyguards charged with protecting your life a long time to get over to you and protect your life. But the snake is next to a lake and it throws her into the lake, so now she's in the water as well. She's in the snake's mouth now, and she's like doing the dragon heart thing with the sword to keep the snake from chomping down, but it is taking her down, down, down into the water. Shadows don't work in water, which is like weird and stupid. She tries to use shadows and it says that they dissolve in the water. Like, excuse me? But apparently her bodyguards did get here finally, because they were several miles away doing important bodyguard work, and they started stabbing the snake, and so she's like, it reared back and she is now no longer drowning. Now that Isla is back on shore, she is able to use her wildling powers, and so her bodyguards, who are getting their asses handed to them immediately, she like saves them with a wall of thorns. So Isla just calls on nature and creates this cage of thorns to put the giant snake in, and that works. And the snake then turns into a woman, which, like, are we doing like Nagini here? Is that what's happening? But once she becomes a woman, she can easily step out of the thorn cage, and she just goes over to Isla and is like, yo. So the snake says, don't you recognize me? Like, I'm one of your people. And Isla's like, a wildling that can turn into a giant snake? Like, is everybody gonna turn out to be a wildling? Is that gonna be the twist? Everybody is wildlings? This is on Star Isle, and there's just an ex-wildling living as a giant snake. Isla takes about 2 seconds to process this information, and then she goes, the little girl, and the snake is like, I didn't eat her, but she is gone, quote unquote. So there probably are more snake people, I guess. I'm a little bit confused here. Because the snake said that she didn't do it, but Isla's still like, it has to have been a snake person, so there must be other snake people here who killed the little girl. And so Isla's like, well, this is gonna stop. You need to stop eating people right now. That's very, very bad, even though up until quite recently, my people, my civilized wildling people, ate human hearts. But you need to stop. Just, the starlings cannot catch a break. Like, they die at 25, and their little children are taken by giant snakes that live in the woods. Like, what? If I was them, I would give everyone the middle finger and fucking leave immediately. Also, I'm sorry that my eyes are watering, like, copiously, but that's what happens. If my sinuses are even slightly irritated, my eyes just will not stop watering. So Isla's like, stop killing people, bad snake woman. And the snake woman's like, well, if people stop coming over here, we won't eat them. So Isla processes all of this again at light speed, and she immediately goes from, okay, this is snake woman is one of my people, to stop eating people, snake woman, to actually we could use this snake woman in battle. In like, this is how long her thought process takes. Like this, down to where my thumb is her entire thought process. Isla has definitely decided that she is in charge of this snake woman, though, because she's like, you will fight with us. That is not a request. So Snake Lady is like, actually, no, I won't fight for you. You're not the boss of me. And starts to transform into a snake again, but Isla's bodyguards, like, grab her and pull her away. And Isla is, like, being pulled away by her bodyguards flying away, and she just, like, shouts, like, you're not allowed to kill any more starlings, by the way. Like, great. Good job, Isla. Oh my god, you're such an amazing queen. Thank goodness you're here. And then it just cuts to her being in bed later that night, thinking about an encounter with a different snake, and then that will be the next chapter, which is another memory chapter. What the fuck is happening in the present? Like, it's very clear to me that Alex Astor does not care about what's happening in the present and just wants to write about the adventures of Grimm and Isla looking for the MacGuffin sword. It's so evident. Like, even though the writing isn't necessarily better in those sections, in the sections where it's not Grimm and Isla, I just have no idea what the fuck is going on. Like, what is happening? Why did Isla think she could boss around the Snake Lady? And then the Snake Lady didn't fucking listen, so what was the point of any of that? I'm baffled, Alex Astor. Alright, I'm gonna go make some tea, and I might come back yet today, we'll find out. Alright, hello, I am back. It is the next day, and my voice probably sounds so bad, but I'm worried that it's gonna go away completely, so I wanna, like, film as much of this book as possible. Like, selfishly, I'm plowing through this book because I want to watch other people's videos about it. So I'm sorry that my voice sounds like shit, and probably when I'm listening back through this later, I'm gonna hate listening to my own voice sounding like this, but this is what we got.
Also, I'm wearing my horsey sweater because all of my other sweaters are dirty. Oh, it's been a great week. Let's go. We're back with Grim Daddy in the before times. Oh, one thing I wanted to point out is that old Alex here has done a Slytherin, which is to put everybody who is evil into, like, the same place. So, like, all of the people that we have seen so far in Nightshade are, like, bad criminals, just, like, doing all of the crimes here. And also, I would also like to point out, I just thought of this today, and it made me snort with laughter. So we find out that Nightbane is basically like hard drugs in this universe. So essentially, titling the book Nightbane is equivalent to titling it like meth or cocaine. I'm looking forward to reading this exciting new fantasy book, Cocaine. It's gonna be great. Nigel is here, everyone. Don't panic. So apparently now she's at some masked celebration that's happening in Cretan's Crag. So she's gotta have an excuse to get our character in a mask. And also a skimpy dress. It's super important that she dress to fit the culture, which is skimpy. Because once again, these are the people who are evil, and therefore they would not have very many clothes. Just like her own people, the wildlings are the ones who are savage and sexy, so they also are the other culture that doesn't wear a lot of clothes. Like, this author doesn't describe anything really, but she wants us to know that Isla's breasts were pressed together and spilling over the top. The slit was so high she'd had to forgo underclothes altogether. So this girl is wearing something so skimpy with her boobies basically spilling out, and she's not wearing underwear. That's all really important for us to know in this fantasy book. No description of what Grim is wearing. Can we assume that he's dressed like Kylo Ren in that one scene that we've already established the girlies cannot get over?
Do you have something, a cowl or something you could put on?
Because, like, it's super important that we know how sexy Isla is looking, but clearly unimportant to know whether Grim is also dressed to match. So Grim is pretty certain that this crazy celebration will draw out this notorious thief that he's looking for, who will totally just be, like, easy to nab and have the sword that Grim wants available. Also, we are at a place called Cretan's Crag, but there has been absolutely no description of this location. So, like, it could look like anything. It could be an actual crag that we're partying a crag, or that could just be the name of the place, and, like, it means nothing. Like, this, they could be in a city, they could be beside the ocean, they could be anywhere because there's no description of place. Again, the writing is just so novice and it's so repetitive. She looked over at him. In the next line, it said, Grim glanced over at her. It's very clear to me that there was, like, no developmental editor hired for this, or no one nearly as thorough as I am. Like, I am super, super thorough. I go through everything on the line-by-line level and help you find stuff like this, and it's very clear that nobody did that for this book. A woman randomly is flirting with Grim, and Isla is jealous, of course. But the woman who's flirting with Grim just also happens to be a contact of his, and she shows them straight to where the snake guy is, because you remember the master thief famously, apparently, has a pet snake. And they find him, and sure enough, his snake, which is apparently a viper, is curled around his shoulders. There's no possibility of misidentifying him. By the way, this whole celebration is just, like, described over and over again as just this hive of debauchery. Everybody's doing drugs, everybody's having sex, nobody's caring where they, like, vomit on the street. Everybody's half naked, you know the type of thing. But of course this is all happening in broad daylight because they can't do the nighttime thing, So Grim is like, hey, I'm gonna need you to seduce him because the wildlings are famously seductresses. And she's like, oh no, I don't have any powers, and he's gonna figure that out because somehow Isla just cruises through her life all the time with nobody figuring out that she doesn't have powers. And she's like, couldn't you just torture him instead? So Grim just gives her a little bit of sass, and she's like, shut up, I'm gonna seduce this guy, and she stomps off to go do so. Also, apparently almost having her heart carved out, and Eaton has made her realize that her people need her now, so she's like, I have to seduce this man for my people. She's got a very roundabout logic going on here. If I tried to explain her thought process, I think we would all just get lost. So just take my word for it, she has to seduce this man for her people. We have to make sure that we have Isla think about how this is her choice to do this sexy dance. She was not coerced. She's choosing to be objectified at this time. Again, everything about this book, the way it's written, it sounds like Isla herself is not doing anything. Everything is just sort of happening to her. Her hips swayed, dipped, her arms reached above her head. That makes it sound like her hips and her arms are separate beings from herself, which could work if she was disassociating because she hates this, but she's getting into it. So, like, why not make it so she's the one? She raised her hands above her head and swayed her hips. She's dancing on a stage, it's whatever. She glances out at the audience, and there's Grimm, and he is transfixed by her sexy dance. But before she can stare at Grimm for too long, Snake Guy is completely into it, and he gives her some money for a private dance. But Isla has with her what is supposed to be like this super, super strong liquor that's supposed to put him on his ass, like, immediately, and he's completely down to, like, drink it right away. He's guzzling glasses of it while she does a sexy dance for him. But now that she's got him super drunk, which only took, like, 2.5 seconds, she's sitting on his lap and she's like, I'm looking for a sword. But he's like, first of all, the sword is super dangerous and kills anyone who wields it. But second of all, I'm a master thief, but it was stolen from me from an even more masterful thief, who is a woman, so Isla will probably not be able to seduce her, unless we acknowledge some women-loving women in this book. She manages to get out of him that this super thief's hideout is in the caves of Erida. So super convenient that this is like the most amazing thief in all the land, but their hideout is just like well known. The reason that nobody dares to bother this one super thief is that she's a monster. We just keep adding elements to this book that has too many elements already. We have, I'm assuming, more people who can shapeshift going on. It's just so much. And then once she has gotten this information out of the guy, he immediately falls asleep. Okay, this scene is weird. So Grimm comes in just as she's like getting off of this guy who has fallen asleep. And she's like, don't kill him. And he's all menacing, like, I kill a lot of people. I kill whoever I want. But then she, like, he backs up against a wall for some reason. And then she gets all sassy, like, ooh, did I seduce you as well? And apparently she did, because he, like, starts pressing up against her and grabbing her and pushing her against the wall. And she's super into it. And it feels so out of nowhere. Like, I get it. She just did a sexy dance on stage. But, like, they're on a mission here. Allosexuals, are you okay? But, like, also, I don't think even allosexuals are doing this. There's an unconscious man next to them who may or may not wake up at any time, and he's got a mission to find a secret sword. But he doesn't even ask her, like, what's the information? He's just like, let's do some hot and heavy petting up against this wall all of a sudden. He bites her neck, but, like, not in a vampire way, just in a sexy foreplay way. And Isla is, like, so into it. This is so dumb. They're both, like, really into it. She's really into it. She wants him to, like, take her now. And he turns her around and shoves her against the wall. And she's into it. She's very into it. But then instead of doing anything, he makes a portal in front of her and pushes her through. Which I kind of love, that she thinks that she's gonna get, like, some aggressive sex, and instead he just, like, shoves her through a portal. The next chapter is called Split, which could go in a lot of interesting ways, and it's, like, 3 pages long before we get back to the past chapters, and I feel like I really don't think that Alex Astor cares anymore about what's going on in the present. I know I've said that a million times, but she doesn't. I'm going to go make some tea, and then I'm going to try to come back and film a little bit more, even though this is the voice that I have right now. Sorry.
Shun the non-believer! Shun!
But you know who's not a non-believer? My patrons, and also Nigel, who is here on my lap while I'm trying to record this. But who are my patrons? Let's go in reverse order this time. Sarah, Lisa, Amanda, Jenny, Savvy, Scribbling Cat, Rennie, Jesper, Zaire, Shelby, Ray, Callison, Anne Sophie, Patrick, Belle, The Unraveled Legion, Light Julie, Hidden Glade, Kit, Maureen, Sophia, Ashley, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Melissa, Afra, Deborah, Rita, Alyssa, Celia, Amanda, LaFone, KJ, Caitlin, Ursula, Robin, Jojo Bookish, Bear, Kirsten, Maria, Mooney, Kohikaro, Kira, Sam, Haley, Julius the Nice Dragon, Pansing Pony, Roma, Ingrid, Veda, 78 kilograms of shade, Kat, Sarah, Saga, Nico, Sunny Shy, Bird Anonymous, July, Martha Baggins, SB Boots. All these people, they are the true believers. Would you like to say anything, Nigel? Get in, everyone. We're going to Candy Mountain.